This is a really interesting one. Nothing is real. Sort of a koan. Two apparently incompatible meanings, as well as appearing counterintuitive, really. It reminds me of the famous image of the silhouette candlestick that alternatively appears as two profiles. We see it as one or the other, but can't hold both of those images simultaneously. In this statement, nothing is real, we can sort of think of nothing is real. That can be understood as saying that no things are real, all is unreal, an idea central to Buddhism, but which is not nihilistic there, but it requires us to redefine what we mean by real. Our conventional reality is not it. On the other hand, I can understand the statement in terms of nothing is real to mean that emptiness, just like stuff, absence like presence, is real. Just like in set theory, the null set is a member of all sets. Of course, this begs to have the word real unpacked. Like koans in Zen Buddhism, if it's worked out long enough, it leads to a resolution, not an easy answer, but in a sort of realization beyond the dualistic terms of the koan. It's also beyond language. So I want to get this examination started with an idea of how do I usually define real? What does real mean to me? It has a conventional meaning which starts with my body, my senses, what I see, touch, sense out there, the tree, my body, the world, matter, all the stuff that my senses detect. But then what about an hallucination or a dream I might have? I sense it just as powerfully as others, or more powerfully, but others, like the men in the white coats, or myself, hopefully later, might see it as an illusion and say that it's not real. But is an illusion unreal? What about fantasy, or even intentional deception and lies? I might say they are real because they have an effect on material things, like my hallucination might cause me to jump out of a tree thinking I'm a bird, or my dream might cause me to wake up in a sweat, shaking with fear, or an intentional lie might cause God knows what as a consequence. I might argue that these originate from my material brain as thoughts or emotions, but then I might notice that while they might arise there, they don't always originate there. They might originate as a concept or an idea or a narrative got from elsewhere, from outside my head, from somewhere or something that I'd heard, a communication. For example, the concept of justice might cause me to join a reform group, or I might have an idea like faith, which causes me to become, say, a missionary or launch a war thinking that God requires it of me. I might counter that these have their origin in materiality, but then I'd notice that their immaterial dimensions are what gives them wings, force of a movement amongst communities or religions, that turns the concept into an infection that spreads and mobilizes nations. Ideas like freedom or democracy, the yellow peril, lots of varieties of fear which originate and spread immaterially as ideas or ideologies. And that's not even to think about the Platonic realm of ideas. So I might concede the reality of ideas and concepts on the grounds that they can and do affect matter and other things I call real. But then, don't all ideas have some effect on material reality? Just by virtue of being thought, they set up a reaction within the thinker, and if it's communicated within the person who hears, maybe a whole population which receives the communication. Either they can react to the communication or ignore it. Even the ignoring is an effect. So even the concept of nothing, along with something, has at least that sort of reality. Some cases of nothing can have a strong effect. For example, if there is nothing in my bank account, or far more importantly, nothing in my stomach. Look at what happened when the gnomes of Wall Street discovered there was nothing behind the paper value of investments. There was nothing they wouldn't do to make sure that their bonuses didn't shrink to nothing. Here we can see that nothing is very real. The concept nothing is information, just as its complement, something. This sort of analysis leads me to the conclusion that nothing is most definitely real, but the real is not the simple-minded reality of convention, grounded in materiality, but that which has an overpowering immaterial dimension, like the ideas with which I interpret it. No matter how hard I try to grasp it, all my efforts to define reality in terms of materiality fails, as I need immaterial concepts, that they seem to conflict with the metaphors I use to imagine these concepts, like love, justice, patriotism, usually thought of in terms of their consequences in the material world. It's the same if I think about myself, in inverted commas, self. Although I start with my immateriality, almost everything interesting that I want to say about myself is concepts. For example, all my qualities, or lack of these qualities, all of which are immaterial, but which have consequences in my real material world. Reality, including myself, is as much idea as it is material, and that the koan I mentioned cracks if I realize that my concept of reality is a duality of matter and mind collapses. The thing is that my idea of reality is continually found wanting when I do an in-depth investigation into it. It isn't self-sustaining or complete. It always needs to reach beyond supporting ideas, and in the end I run out of supporting ideas to reach for, and conclude that the conventional reality, the reality that I think is reality, is an illusion, but about a reality outside of me that gives rise to this blizzard of sense impressions, including thought. What can I definitely know? I must infer it. But then again, maybe there is nothing beyond those sense impressions. Reach out into a dualistic other universe is the core of the problem, and it arises because of this duality of an in here and an out there. Consciousness, in fact, is beyond such a dichotomy. Maybe that is the duality, the false dichotomy that must collapse in the resolution of the koan.